It seems now more than any time in recent history, Christians around the world are being singled out and persecuted. Most recently and unfortunately were occurrences in Pakistan where two churches were targeted by suicide bombers. The two attacks resulted in the deaths of 14 people and injured at least 70. The bombings were obviously coordinated as they occurred fairly close in proximity and time. One suicide bomber detonated inside one church, and the other was stopped at a security checkpoint and detonated when being tackled by a guard. Pakistan, whose track record of protecting religious minority groups is spotty at best, has a history of attacks on Christians. In an op-ed piece I wrote in the Washington Times in February, I discussed the suffering of Christians and other religious minorities around the world. Last November, a mob of 1,200 in Pakistan lynched two Christians accused of burning a Quran, and a judge sentenced a Christian to death for blasphemy. The State Department's International Religious Freedoms Report for 2013 highlights Pakistan's inability to protect the religious minorities under its jurisdiction. The report speaks of Pakistan's enforcement of blasphemy laws that restrict religious freedoms and are the symbols of religious intolerance. While the government is vocal of its condemnation for attacks on Christians and other religious communities, it has not taken proper steps to ensure the attackers of such atrocities are brought to justice. Again, it seems to be that words matter more than actions to them. Pakistan is by far not the only country to possess such a dismal record of protecting Christians. In my op-ed, I speak of China and North Korea as countries that target Christians. Across also Middle East and North Africa, Muslim terrorist organizations search out Christians and kill them violently and in graphic ways only because the person chose to pray to a different God. Now, fellow Americans, when you think about what I've just said, when you think about the freedom that we have here, and the very essence of our religious freedom in America is the freedom for all to express their religious beliefs or express none at all. And yet all over the world, countries such as Pakistan, Islamist extremist groups such as ISIS and others who have no part in a civilized society and need to be banished and turned away with in a civilized society, choose to horrendously kill someone for who they pray and the faith that they have. Explain to me how you're supposed to worship a God that says it is okay to behead 16 Christians, or to blow up their church, or desecrate their facilities. It is something that must be addressed. You see, these atrocities should not just startle those of a religious faith, of non-religious faith as well. They should startle and shock the world to realize that this is something that must cease. For me, it is personal as a Christian, as one of faith. My faith is described to me as being one in Christ with other believers. So for me, when one is beheaded, we are all persecuted, including those here in our comfort in America. You see, religious freedom is not just something that we talk about in the comfort of America, but must be rung loud and true throughout the world. You see, having a member of a common faith that is being decapitated, burned alive, impaled, crucified, these are family members to me, but in the reality to the world, as the poet has once said, every man's death diminishes me. What a tragedy it takes on when it takes the form of religious intolerance by people who want their own views believed. You see, I desire now that the President seriously take into consideration the recommendation of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. It provides recommendations to Congress and the President about the lack of religious freedoms in other countries and advises the White House on non-lethal actions that can be taken against those countries. Since 2002, they have recommended that Pakistan be named as a country of particular concern. The designation of a country of particular concern allows the government to use non-military policies to encourage a country to increase protection for religious minorities. I strongly encourage the White House to consider looking into designating Pakistan as a country of particular concern. I ask the question to this administration and to the world, how many more Christians have to be blown up? How many more have to be beaten in prison? How many more have to have their heads taken off before we act? When I deployed to Iraq, I saw the multitude of faiths and lack of faith. I have seen it come together, and I understand what we are fighting for. when we talk about those who act in the name of a God and Islamic extremists who want nothing but to eradicate the rest of the people's beliefs, this is something that cannot be tolerated. I cringe when I think of this. While I disagree many times with the decisions made at 1600 Pennsylvania, I ask that this administration take this very seriously and consider religious freedom for all around the world. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.